Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Surprisingly Good podcast. Today, we're
Hi.
finally back from doing our homework that we gave to each other, watching different animes that we assigned to each other so that we can review, comment, and talk about it. So, Jasmine, welcome back.
Hello.
All
I'm
right.
back.
So the last episode we gave each other homework, and I gave you the homework to watch a classic anime called Orange Road. I think this is back from the 80s or 90s, right?
That's correct. Yeah, everything was hand drawn.
Oh yeah, those are the days. And you assigned to me something very dark, something, something that was really makes you think after you watch the anime. It lingered with me for a couple of days after that. That's how powerful that anime you assigned to me was, and it's called Jinro.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I want to ask you why you assigned this particular show to me.
Ooh, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm going to try to be succinct. I think the first reason is because I feel like it's a very cinematic heavy type of movie. I think when most people think about anime, they're thinking about shonen anime or like adventure or something, bright and happy and more straightforward. But I think Jinro, and I believe this anime is also made in the 80s. It was definitely
Uh-huh.
made before I was born, I believe. But I think, it kind of showcases like the range that anime can have. Like it's dark, it's gritty, it's made for adults. There's a lot of historical context and nuance. So I thought it's a pretty good, like I would recommend it, I think, to anybody
Hmm.
that's watched anime or that hasn't watched anime. Like I just think it's a really good movie overall. So back at
Oh,
you.
I thought you assigned this to me because you thought like, Vic's such a dinosaur, he'll probably appreciate this because
Oh
it was made
no,
all the way back.
I actually like not a lot of people watch it because I do think it's kind of you have to kind of like it kind of runs like a movie, right? And
Yeah.
then there's not a lot of narration in it, so I think it's the type of show you have to kind of sit and soak in the atmosphere and kind of do a little bit of research on World War II beforehand, but
Mm.
overall, I think it's quite sophisticated, so
All
that's why
valid
I like
reasons.
to.
Another thought that
Yeah.
popped in my head was I thought it was a reflection of what you thought of me as a person, that I enjoy these really dark and depressing enemies,
Oh no,
which I
I
do,
just.
by the way, which I do. I do. I appreciate different genres, all across the board.
Yeah.
But one thought that popped into my head was like, oh, does Jasmine think that I enjoy watching these dark, depressing, stuff about possibly war and suffering and, deeper questions into like, what is a revolution? Why do people rebel? Why do people do the things that they do?
I mean, maybe you do. If that's what you like, I can recommend more. But I think this one is one of the anime I just like. If when people ask me like, "What's your recommendation?" It's always on like the
Your
top
go-to,
three,
right?
kind
Yeah.
of, because it's a movie. It's not that long. It's the art style's beautiful. It requires it's some kind of brain work. So
Right.
it's definitely not a reflection of you as a person. I would recommend this to anybody.
Okay. Okay. Since you like this so much, tell us, do you know anything about the director or the writer of this movie? I'm looking it up right now online. It's Hiroyuki Okiura.
I think he's the person that did Ghost in Shell.
Ah,
Yeah, a
okay.
lot a lot of people know about Ghost in Shell, but I find a lot of people don't know about Jinro. Personally, I think I might even like Jinro a little bit better than Ghost in Shell. Like they're very different. It's not something I would necessarily compare, but
It
I
was the
think
other way around for me. Like, I actually knew about Jinro first before Ghost in the Shell.
oh,
Yeah, I guess I'm just that old.
I think Ghost in the Shell I think it got popular later in the West, but yeah, I don't hear a lot of people talk about Jinro, so it's
Oh,
kind
okay.
of
It's
a
not too bad. It's
hidden gem.
1999. It's not back in the 80s. Okay,
Okay.
great, great. Okay, I don't feel too old.
But I
And I
want to
think
throw yeah.
oh, sorry to cut you off. There's like a new version of this movie, right? Like an live action version of the Jinro. Have you heard
Oh
about
yeah,
that?
I think there's a live action one, and Chainsaw Man recently released a movie that follows the plot of Jinro.
Oh, okay.
So, there's a lot of kind of movies that I think took a lot of inspiration from it. I think it has a
Mm,
lot of, like, I just recently watched the Chainsaw Man movie, and it basically follows a plot like almost to the T. And
okay.
even the creator was like, this movie is heavily inspired by this
Oh, I'm
show.
looking at
So
the Wikipedia page for Jinro, and it's written by Mamoru Oshii, right? And I think that's the guy you were talking about who wrote Ghost in the Shell, or is it the director Hiroyuki Okura? But anyway, these guys,
they're
yeah,
geniuses.
right. So wow, let's see, a lot of good stuff here, right? So Ghost in the Shell is the one that's well known. They've done all
They've
kinds
done
of
like
stuff.
Angel's Egg. They done, I think, a
Also,
lot
one thing I
of,
wanted to comment on that I appreciated about this was it's made by Production IG, which is, I mean, even for a
yeah.
guy that, when I was watching a lot of stuff when I was back in college, I
Hmm.
didn't dive deep into which studio did what, or, or the background of the writers. I didn't go that deep back in the day. But even back then, I could appreciate some stuff that came out of Production IG. And when I revisited Jinro after you assigned it to
Hmm.
me, and I realized that it's made by Production IG, I was thrilled because I remember really enjoying Blood, the Last Vampire, and that was made
Yeah.
by Production IG as well. And I remember back in the day when I was watching it totally blew my mind that animation can be this crisp, this the
Hmm.
storytelling, the pacing, and just the tasteful use of CGI. I should add, it wasn't rampant back then. I probably think it's probably expensive too back in the day to use
Yeah.
too much CGI because it was relatively groundbreaking at that time. But then where it was called for and used tastefully, I thought was superb. Because before that, most anime, like you said, are just hand drawn. I shouldn't say just hand drawn. Hand drawn anime is beautiful,
Yeah.
but to see CGI used tastefully in appropriate scenes throughout a show, oh, that was so refreshing. That was great.
Yeah. And then I feel like it's not even just, it's like, yes, it's like the vibe, it's a hand drawing, but I think there's just something about older anime. Like there's a certain sort of atmospheric, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like the newer animes lost something that the older animes
Oh, before we
had.
dive into that though, we should go back to you for a second here. Okay, so Orange Road.
I was gonna segue into that because
Yeah.
Orange Road, I feel like, well, I watched the, first part of it, and even though the premise is quite simple, I feel like it had like a certain charm that older animes had
That's
that
what I was going for. That's what I
newer
wanted you to
animes
see.
lost.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
exactly.
I was trying to like think about what exactly it is. Like, I don't think it's just the hand drawing. I don't think, but I think it also goes into like the palette use,
Mm-hmm.
like, the colors that they use. And I think it's the way that the characters' expressions are animated. Oh, and then like, I think it's also the voice actors too. Like,
Right, right.
I think modern anime is kind of voiced by like all the same voice actors nowadays. You get a voice
Mm,
actor that's really famous. Like everybody is voiced by like Cloud. Like every
right.
good-looking guy is kind of so it kind of, even though they kind of change the tone of their voice, I find like every newer
Yeah, more or
anime
less you
they're
can tell
starting to
who's
feel,
voicing it, right? Yeah.
yeah, kind of, they're starting to feel more or less the same. But I feel like the older voice actors, they had a lot of different ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I realize is like, how like modern anime girls, they talk in this like very kind of hyper feminized, high pitched
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
They didn't really have that back in the days, right? Because
Mm.
the two main character, like all the main character, even the female main characters of Orange Road, I think Kaori was her name.
Mm-hmm.
Orange Road. I'm gonna make sure I get it
Right.
right.
You look that up while I tell you the reason why I thought that it would be an interesting watch for you to watch
Ooh,
Orange
yes,
Road.
please.
No, because later on when I looked it up, and this is so interesting for me because like I recognize all these styles and genres without just knowing the particular label that people put on it until I looked it up. So when I looked it up after all these years, so apparently Orange Road kind of set the way for tsundere. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Oh,
Tsundere
yeah, yeah,
characters,
yeah,
which is now like a staple, like a mainstream of
yeah,
Japanese anime. But back in the day, this was quite groundbreaking to create a character, a tsundere character. And maybe you
yeah.
can tell the audience a little bit what a tsundere is. You probably could explain that a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, no, I get it. But tsundere is someone who kind of has a cold exterior, but once you get to know them, they can be quite loving and
Right? It's
warm.
one of the anime tropes that we see a lot these days, right?
And that's definitely, I think Madoka is her name, the main
Yeah,
character. She
yeah.
definitely fits in the trope. But she's also not, how should I say, like, she is tsundere, but she's not tsundere in the way that kind of erases her character. Like, I feel like a lot of modern anime, like, they're trying to make this character tsundere, and then her whole personality is tsundere, and then
Mm,
her whole backstory, like all she is tsundere. But what I find with in Madoka's case, it's kind of like, okay, she's a little bit standoffish, but like obviously it seems like this girl has a reason to. It has a good reason to. Like,
mm.
it kind of invites you to kind of look deeper into the character and not just immediately write her off as, oh, she's tsundere and that's why
So the
she's doing
story
that.
does a good job at establishing or leading up to understanding the character. Why she's tsundere? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
I think it's also like, again, it's that older anime charm where I guess they don't have as many tropes to work off of. So I feel like there's more um I'm not sure if that's the right word, but
Mm-hmm.
because they have less to work off of, like they almost have more freedom.
Right. Well, I loved it
Like,
because like you can imagine as a young man growing up, and I didn't even know that this was something that I'd be attracted to.
right.
It was so when I was watching it, for some reason I have this fascination. I thought like, wow, if this person, or this character was a person in real life, like I definitely want to know more about her. You know what I mean? It's like I don't
Yeah.
understand why I'm attracted to this character the way that I did. But the more you watch, the more fascinating you find it, and you find yourself wishing to meet a person like this in real life. So I don't know if it's a case of life imitates art or art imitating life, but whatever the case, it makes for such. I don't know. Maybe it's a prepubescent, a boy kind of longing that's like inspiring all of these feelings. But I don't know. It just seems like, oh, that would be so cool if I have a friend like that, or even a girlfriend, right? Oh, if I have a girlfriend like that, that'll be wonderful. And I don't know what the attraction there is. Maybe it's her long black hair, the Asian in me, right? Or I don't know what is it about her. She seems so ladylike and composed, yet a little naughty, a little fun, and contrast that with the other main character, because it's a love triangle after all, right?
Yeah.
So the other female protagonist, who's completely opposite from her. She's bubbly, she's very eager, she does everything she can to win the heart of the male protagonist. And it's like they're both wonderful, but for some reason, I find that most Asian men, at least from my generation, would be drawn
Yeah.
to the Madoka character. Somebody who's tsundere, who's like, if by all accounts, you should be like, yeah, this is not somebody you should go for because she's so standoffish, she's so cool and cold, right? It's kind of like the ice queen. But something about that kind of person makes you want to like be the one to break that ice. And if you do win her over, I would assume it's more satisfying rather than somebody who's just like needy and clinging on to you all the time. Does that make sense?
I actually think there's two reasons why this anime blew up, and I think one of the first reasons is because I think modern day tsundere, they're kind of very heavily sexualized. But whereas in Madoka's case, it's not, well, first of all, I don't think there's a lot of sexualization to begin with in Orange Road. I think a lot of it
Right.
is
It's
quite
clean. Yeah.
it's quite
Yeah.
character driven. So like
Right.
instead of focusing on that hot and cold. It's more focused on like the mystery, like what is her past. It's not about
Ah,
her being super beautiful.
right,
It's more about, oh,
right.
she's very athletic. She's very good at fighting.
And you
What
wonder
made
why, and you
her
want
this way.
to keep watching to find out more about this character, right?
Yeah, whereas I find modern tsundere characters, they kind of like, again, tsundere is their personality. So it's like, the hot and cold spikes are very close in between. Like, they'll be like, oh, here's water, but it's not like I pour this water for you and anything. Like
I see what you
it's
mean.
very
I see
it's
what you
very
mean.
flat. There's no
There's more
reasoning
nuances
behind
to
it.
like older shows like Orange Road, like
Kind of. Or like there's
yeah.
no reasoning. It's like this person's just a tsundere because she's a like fucking bitch. Whereas for Orange Road, it's like I see that there's an intentionality and kind of like the tsundere aspect of her, because in the first three episodes, she's very nice to him when they're together alone, but when there's other people around, she kind of
Right, that's an
presents as more
interesting point.
standoffish.
Yes.
So it's like that sort of, I guess it's like it makes you wonder what the reasoning behind her standoffishness is, rather than just, oh, okay, she's like bipolar. So I think it's very well done. And I think the second reason is apparently um men kind of born in Japan before the bubble burst, like so maybe in the
Mm-hmm.
70s and 80s when the economy was going well, apparently like a lot of animes back then had more robust, like stronger female characters, because
Oh,
that was what the men preferred. But as
I
the
see.
economy went down, like the female characters got like more infantilized. So some people think it's, men's preference in
Oh, it's
women
interesting.
is
Yes.
actually dictated by economical factors. So I think
Oh, I
there's two
never
reasons
thought
to
of it
that.
that way. Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up. Of whatever the reason, though, I find myself strangely attracted to this Madoka character. Like, I'm just like the guy in me. Maybe the from my generation. I don't know. I can't speak for men, for all men, or especially boys who are younger than me. But I don't know. For me, I just find myself strangely attracted to this type of character. I find
But I
her
think as
very alluring. Yeah.
but I think as like woman too, like I do think she's a lot more well written than a lot of the female characters. Like they don't really write characters like this in modern anime
That's
these
right.
days.
That's right. It's hard to find that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I have given some more like popular harem animes a try, but again, it's just so heavily sexualized and the characters are made too flat that like all the mystery like is just solved in like the first three episodes,
Right.
or like, but I think, oh, and I think another thing that Orange Road does really well is pacing.
Mm.
So like in the beginning you kind of know that this is kind of a love triangle,
Hmm.
but the first three episodes is more used to establish the main character's kind of personal struggles and like what this school is like, what this new town is
Do
like.
you think modern audiences would be able to stand this kind of pacing, or this would be too slow for most modern audiences?
Well, that's the thing that I realized. I feel like a lot of modern audiences have like lower attention spans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think anime has been like rewritten to kind of suit the modern taste. But I feel like if you really want to kind of, I guess, enjoy something maybe that's a little, because like stories take time to tell, right? Like
Yeah.
character and
Especially good
bonds,
ones.
it takes
Right.
time to set up. So I feel like especially for something that's like a coming of age love story, I think you do need to take that time for the emotional payoff to come out right.
That's right. You have to be patient. I also think that this is the type of anime that it almost feels like you're marinating. You have to really
Yeah.
marinate. You have to immerse yourself to the look and feel of the world that they've created. And then the emotional payoff becomes that much greater because you're now invested. And they do a good job at that, because if it has to be this kind of pacing, then the voice acting has to do a lot of the heavy carrying,
Oh
right? The voice
yeah.
acting has to come through. They have to do a good job because without flashing lights and frames changing left and right all the time, what have you got left? It's slow, it's deliberate, and it's the voice acting. A lot of the emotions have to be conveyed. It has to come through. A lot of nuance, for one thing. And let's also talk a little bit about the dynamics between the two female characters, because it's a love triangle. And then we talked a little bit about how the two girls are different. But what about their
Yeah.
relationship to each other? I would like to hear that from a female perspective, from you. What do you think about their relationship?
Actually, in the first three episode, they actually don't show too much of them besides the fact that they are friends. But they showed a lot about the
You saw the
relationship
movie though,
between.
right? Yeah. So
No,
that's
I
where it
didn't get to
really.
the movie because my
Oh, I
internet was
see.
down. Yeah, I like literally
Okay.
just fixed
That's
it
your
today,
follow-up
so I
homework.
could.
That's your follow-up
That will
homework.
be, yeah.
Because
But
it changes tones drastically by the time you get to the movies. Yeah. I don't want to
but
spoil it for you, but
yeah, don't.
anyway, the gist of it is like the tone from the TV series to the movies shifts very dramatically. The movies
Oh,
become way
interesting.
more serious. Like like you said, it's a coming of age kind of anime. But by the time they get to the movies, they have sort of come of age, and
Okay.
the motivations, the emotions, they're very grounded now. And
Right.
and it adds a very interesting dynamic. I mean, and becomes less of a dynamic between the guy and the girl. It actually is, for me, actually a story between the two girls at this point.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that one for for a woman who loves to watch anime would be a very interesting watch.
Yeah, that's actually really intriguing because I think the worst way to write a love triangle is to make it about like stroking the dude's ego. And then, all women are like enemies to each other and they're getting jealous. But, I also think it's kind of interesting that they're kind of positioned as friends and not rivals in the beginning.
It's very
So
lighthearted in the beginning, right? Yeah.
yeah, so I'm interested in seeing like how that will develop. Oh, another thing I really appreciated the anime doing was they gave a lot of time to the side characters as well.
Mm.
Like his two younger sisters and his two male classmates that has
So,
like the photo
yeah.
book of like all the women in his school. I feel like that's something that modern anime doesn't
This
really
is also a good
do
segue into
anymore.
the more fantastic elements of the story. So there's a lot of psychic ability and time travel involved.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just find it interesting that okay, so it's basically a coming of age story. It's a love triangle, so it's a romantic kind of rom com kind of genre.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the author introduces the more fantastic elements into this. So there's time travel. There's the main protagonist, the guy has psychic abilities, and he uses that to hilarious effects sometimes, or like
Yeah.
having good intentions. He wants to fix something, so he uses his abilities, but it ends up like blowing up in his face. So like,
Yeah.
why do Japanese animes or manga always, for some reason, have this element involved? It can't be just like a pure rom com at this point. Like it has to have some of that in there for some reason.
I feel like a lot of rom-com that's aimed at women have less supernatural stuff. But whereas for men, and I think maybe this has to do with the fact that like a lot of men they want like a manic pixie dream. Have you heard of that term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I find like with a lot of like rom-coms aimed at a male audience, there's a lot of like
Well, it
supernatural
was
stuff
written
going on.
by a guy called Izumi Matsumoto. So maybe
Yeah,
because it
but
was written by a guy, or maybe
I
they
think
had to sell
so.
more magazines. They had to sell more copies, so they had to add a little bit of that just to pander to some of the audience that they were going for, right?
Or I think like men find the idea of like dating a supernatural like girl or like the supernatural more appealing in the context of romance. Like maybe a normal girl's too
Or
boring
maybe it's
for a normal
just
guy.
panders to the male fantasy that every guy wishes he has superpowers, right?
That too, yeah. But I find for the rom-coms aimed at women, at least like the really popular ones, some of them have fantastical elements, but I find it to be a 50-50. Like there's a lot of
Right.
Japanese rom-com where it's just like the hot guy next door kind of
Well,
thing.
I mean, like if you look at the publisher, but it was published in Weekly Shonen Jump, so
Oh,
it's
okay, that
still
makes
that
sense.
makes a lot of
Yeah, that
sense,
makes a
right?
lot of sense.
Yeah, within the context of where it was published, so I think they still had to add that. It needs to have the action, the
Yeah,
action
they
parts of it,
do.
just to appeal. Because this was you have to remember this was very groundbreaking back in the day, right? Most of it was just people haven't really seen this type of comic or character fully develop in the mainstream kind of a magazine. So like
Hmm.
I feel that they had to fill in the gaps a little bit. It can't just be like a drastic jump to a completely different genre. Like people might not be able to follow. So they had to add in some elements of action with the fantastic elements. It's just sort of like ease the audience into transitioning into a romantic comedy. Could be that, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
But I
Okay.
like how in the beginning it is subtle and again, like I'm really impressed by the first three episodes because it's all about like marinating, like you said, it's like getting to know his family, getting to know the dynamic he has with his friends. You actually, you see the girls, but you also get a feel of the environment, and I think that's just something modern anime can maybe do a little bit more
It's
of.
like an idealized version of a woman, if I'm being honest. Like this is
Oh, for
I don't know.
Madoka?
Yeah, I don't know if this ruined us or it helped us. I'm not sure about that, but whatever the case, as a guy from that generation, she seems like
Hmm.
the ideal woman to a lot of
Yeah.
us. She's pretty, well mannered, capable, slightly mysterious. I
Yeah.
find that very attractive. Like, I don't know it. The writer obviously understood what we wanted to see,
Oh, yeah,
us
for
guys,
sure.
right? He knows his audience well. He knows what would pique our interest, what would tickle our fantasies, right? But I don't know. I'm still grappling with whether or not that helped or not, because if reality doesn't match up to that kind of idealism, it might affect your dating life, right? As you grow up, like you're constantly looking for this ideal woman who doesn't exist in real life and only exists in anime, right?
I think you have a point, but I think it applies to both genders because I do have a friend, he hasn't really dated. And, he's like not a bad looking guy. He's got money, he's not like abusive or anything. But then I realized like he's so, I feel like chronically an otaku that when I ask
Mm,
about the kind of woman that he wants, it does sound like unreal. Like it does sound like
sounds
he want
unrealistic.
like an anime girl. But like anime woman, they're like unrealistic for a reason,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she has to be pretty, she has to be smart, she
Yeah.
can't like bitch, she has to like have all these things. And then
Right.
if you want one of these things, like that's fine. Like if you want an athletic girl, like that's good. But then when you want athletic and smart and like,
Oh, it's like the best
like
of
blah blah blah.
everything put
Yeah.
together, right? Yeah,
So
that's so
I do
unrealistic.
think like if you grew up on these stuff and like you don't kind of lower your expectations sooner or later, I think it can lead to it. But I think it's also the same for women as well. Because I do know some women they watch a lot of K drama and then they struggle with
That's
like
true. Yeah.
finding the right man because he has
Right.
to like buy me flowers, he has to have a car, he has to
He
drive
has
me
to be a rich
around,
CEO, but
he
for
has to be
some
a rich
reason falls in love with
CEO.
me. I'm a nobody, but he falls for
Exactly.
me.
Yeah. So I do think it's it does I think it kind of messes up people's expectations if they're not aware that this is supposed to be a fantasy.
Yeah, if they're not aware it's supposed to be entertainment, right? Okay, so let's
Yeah.
pivot a little bit about Jinro. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, tell me more about why you like Jinro so much. I mean, I can give you my reasons first. Like I like it for, just great visuals, the
Hmm.
storytelling, the action sequences. As a guy, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a political commentary. Yeah, it has
Yeah.
a socio-economic commentary. A lot of the deep stuff, right? So tell me, why do you like it?
I think well, there's a few reasons, but one of the main reasons is surprisingly the same reason why I like Orange Road is because
Really?
it's a movie that takes a long time to marinate. Like I
Ah,
think the beginning I actually found the beginning it was intense, but from like the 30-minute mark until like the halfway mark, there's actually not a lot of stuff um going on like directly, but there's a lot of like suspense. There's a lot of mystery, but it's
Yeah, a lot
all
of
kind of
foreshadowing, right? And
yeah, and
building of
then
that suspense.
they take a lot of time to let you soak in the environment, to
Yeah,
let you like you kind of feel like you're transported back in time. So I
yeah.
can also see why some people don't like this show, because you have to be the kind of person that's willing to kind of sit through the parts where there's no action. But then I think the payoff at the end is
Mhm.
it's so good. It's so well done. I think it's so hard for movies and like any show in general to nail the ending. And I think it's one of the few shows that like the execution of the ending is just like
What do you think of the sewer
perfection.
scene? That's the most iconic scene in this movie, and I know it's been talked to death, but yeah, what do you think of the sewer scene, especially the part where the little girl, the little Red Riding Hood, blows herself up? I mean, because it doesn't lose any of its shock value, even after watching
Yeah.
the movie all these years, it's like, whoa, what did I just witness? You know what I mean? Yeah, what do you think of that scene?
Well, I kind of see that scene as like part of whole, because in the ending they kind of go back into the sewers, right?
Right, right. It comes full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of comes full circle. Um, to be honest, I feel like the sewer scene in the beginning was quite nice, because it's kind of an intense beginning to
Mm.
as a start to a slow anime. And then, it kind of picks up near the end when they go back in the sewers. I think there's a lot of probably thematic reasons why they picked the sewer, because I think the squad that the main character is in is called Cerberus,
Right,
which
right.
is like,
Yes.
the Hounds of Hell. So, the
Right.
fact that he's part of the group called Cerberus and kind of operating in the underground tunnels, which is maybe like um, a metaphor for hell,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah,
So I
right.
thought that was kind of well done. And I also think it's kind of cool how, it's dark, right? It's kind of like an underground maze. Like you don't know where the enemy is gonna pop up. So I think
Right.
the setting they chose is quite
And at
good.
that point too, you're not sure who's the good or the bad guy here, right? It's not
That's
really
true.
fleshed out at that point.
Yeah.
And that builds the suspense, I think.
Yeah, but it is a slower, like I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was like, this anime is too slow for me. Like, but it is something I still recommend just because the payoff is so well
I
done.
also feel that
So,
even watching it now in 2026, it feels even more relevant. You know what I mean? Like this came out
oh
in the
yeah.
late 90s, but I don't know. I mean, like watching it now, it feels even more applicable to a lot of the stuff that's going on. All the chaos in the world, the riots, the
Yeah.
social unrest. It's almost like watching it now feels more powerful and makes you think of different possibilities that might come out of a situation like this.
Yeah. I actually kind of, it's one of the few, I actually see it as like a love story,
Yeah, well, it
first
is.
and
There is
foremost.
that part too, right? We haven't talked about that at all, right?
Yeah. And then, so I guess like, yeah, the same way, like I think Orange's Road love story is very charming. I think for Jinro, I think it's a love story done right, in the sense that like there's also a lot of commentary on love that's not directly like about love.
Also
Like,
flourishing in the most unexpected of places, right? In that kind of adversity, that kind of conditions, do
yeah,
people still manage to find love for each other?
yeah, and kind of just like I think it's also saying like you can love another person, but that doesn't mean like they won't hurt you. Like
Ooh,
even if they have
yeah,
the best of intentions, like for whatever purposes, whether it be like loyal to their tribe, like or
yeah,
their
yeah.
job, I think like a lot of people we see love in such a like and through a kaleidoscope where it's
Mm-hmm,
like, if
mm-hmm.
we love this person, that person loves me, and like everything will be happy and everything will be fine. But
Mm.
actually, there's a lot of things that I think influences people's actions and decisions that's outside of love's control. Like I can really love someone, but like that doesn't mean they won't hurt me. And in fact,
Yeah.
like I think if anything, this movie teaches us that like sometimes you end up hurting the people that you
Oh
love the
yeah.
most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of men have this male fantasy of like, I'm going to join the army. I'm going to, have a gun and like, I'm going to be a tough guy. But then the person that they really should be protecting, like they're not doing that job very well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think
See, it
that's
always helps to have a woman's perspective on things. See, I would never have thought of all the things that you said in that regard. Like, yeah,
men are just
okay,
like guns,
yeah,
yeah,
kill
armor,
him, shoot
blood,
him.
fuck, yeah, I know, tunnel, fuck them up, boys. Yeah, I think that's what
She's so
most dudes
hot.
see.
That's
Yeah, she's so hot. Yeah, rip her clothes apart. Yeah, fuck her up, blood. Ha ha
right.
ha ha. Yeah.
So just to tie everything together, because our time's coming to an end. So like, after talking to you, it made me realize that there are more similarities, underlying similarities between the two animes than what might appear in the
Absolutely.
surface, right? It's so
Yeah,
interesting. Seems such a
absolutely.
different
Absolutely.
genre, but then they actually have elements that are actually quite tied to each other, right?
I actually think they're more similar to each other than, other animes of their own genre, actually, especially when it comes to the pacing. I think that's a big one.
Right.
The
Interesting that we
narration.
both
Yeah.
picked something that in the end kind of like, wow, okay, so there's a lot more similarities than we thought. I mean, like just briefly off the top of my head, I
Hmm.
think, just finding love in unexpected situations or places,
Yeah.
having good intentions, but end up, sometimes you hurt the person that you're supposed to be protecting and loving.
Yeah.
Yeah. That appears in both shows. That's true. Yes.
Yeah, but for I'm very excited because like next week's homework I'm gonna give to you kind of directly ties in with Jinro.
Well, I
So
mean, Jinro has it's a whole series. I think it's not just Jinro. There's like before and after, right?
manga,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
There's
think
the
so.
universe, the IP has more stuff, right? But what are you
Right.
assigning to me for my next homework?
For your next homework, I'm assigning you the new Chainsaw Man movie.
Okay, well that's easy. I
Yeah.
can watch it on Netflix. Okay.
Yeah. What about for me? The
So
Orange Road movie,
the
right?
movie, yeah, but there are two
Awesome.
movies, and one of them is the more serious one. You can look it up. The more serious one, if you can just even watch scenes from that movie, you don't have to watch the entire thing.
No,
Yeah,
no, yeah,
you'll see that
send
it's
them
a very
both.
different dynamic. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I'm excited for that.
Okay, so with that, we kind of wrap up this episode, and we're looking forward to exploring more about how life imitates art and art imitates life by watching anime.
Awesome. Okay. Thank
All
you, Vic. I'll
right.
see you next time.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.